Yeah, beyond the pale. I stand as the waters. They send our sons to war. Yeah, yeah, beyond the pale. Yeah, they sent our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reason, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics, a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings, they parade through our towns. They distract and divide us, with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. The anti-human agenda, plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold, heartless play. Eat insects, they sneer while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal with the tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedoms all cease. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end. Twisting truth in their grip till our minds start to bend. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Order out of chaos, their sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond the pale lies the truth they conceal, a world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where their power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will prevail. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Beyond the pale. Beyond the pale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, yeah, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Beyond the pale, yeah.
Welcome everybody to this week's rendition of RBM Beyond the Pale. In the studio with me is, as you see, Don Jeffries and my special guest Sabrina Salvati here for the second time. Thank you, Sabby, for showing up.
Thanks for having me on, RB.
No problem. And Don, greetings and salutations. Of course, I just got his latest book. Thank you for sending it to me. American Memory Hole, How the Court Historians Promote Disinformation. Thank you for sending this to me, Don. I haven't really read it yet. I still got Whitney Webb books I haven't read. And also of the best book about the COVID thing, Masking the Truth, How COVID-19 Destroyed Civil Liberties and Shut Down the World by Donald Jeffries. Fantastic book.
I appreciate that. It's great to be with Sabby, too. I watch your show. It's wonderful to be here.
That's great. So we only have Sabby for half an hour, and I want to get right into it. I want to talk to Sabrina real quick. What brought you into this arena? I know we went through the academia and the education system and everything. When did you first notice something was wrong? And because I know you're an Army brat, so you must have a lot of experience, all the different bases you went throughout around the world. So you got a good broad education, a good broad sampling of how people are out there. when did you start noticing something was wrong, and when did you kind of wake up? Was it while you were being trained as an educator, or a little bit afterwards?
It was before. I think the OID housing crisis really woke a lot of people up. It definitely did wake me up. That was when I just realized that, I did all this work. I was working hard, and it just seemed like it didn't matter. Like, it was hard to keep up with things at that point in time. I remember like putting $5 gas in my car
Yeah.
and just saying like, well, just gonna get me back and forth to work, and that's it. And I'm not gonna really be able to go do anything else. Working 2 jobs, that type of thing. And seeing that and going through that, it really made me think about things in a different way. And, I started to ask myself, like, what happens when you do what you're told to do, you do everything right, as they say it, and the economic system just still does not work the way that it should for people who are working class. And that's something I've been paying attention to, ever since then. And I think that, seeing that and still having somewhat a bit of hope that things would turn around. And things did get better a little bit economically, but I don't think we've ever gotten back to that point that we were before the '08 housing crisis.
Yeah, and on a broader level, that's like everything they do. It's at one point in time, and Don can attest to this, in the 50s and 60s, when we had the highest representation in unions, and middle class people could get by on just one person's salary, and they could go for vacations, they could save for a rainy day. Education wasn't free, but it was cheap. Any middle class person could get ahead. It seemed to be after the Vietnam War when they really cracked down on that, right? Don, they said, "Oh my God, this middle class is too much power." They managed to stop a whole war, and that's when they started pushing the credit cards and putting you more and more into debt slavery, and the housing prices started to rise. And we'll talk about this with Sabby. The gentrification craze started happening in the 80s, and it hasn't stopped. Do you think that has a lot to do with it?
Yeah, it did. I think that we had the greatest economy the world has ever seen, the post-war boom. Of course, the military-industrial complex came with it, but the baby boomers enjoyed something that had never been seen before and hasn't been seen since. So we've kind of returned to normal. Unfortunately, it's just we were spoiled. But I wrote a book on the Survival of the Richest that describes that all of this. It describes the rig marketplace, how working class and poor people are up against something in everything they do. The system is rigged against them. It's very hard. There's very little upward mobility, as you know, and it's just getting worse because now there are no opportunities out there for young people, and they can lie and say what they want. But I know people that are trying to get a job in this, and it's very, very difficult. It's to get anything decent, certainly even to live independently.
Okay, I wanted to talk to Sabby about this. This is your YouTube channel, and everybody should go to Sabby Sabs YouTube and subscribe. This is your documentary called "Removed: Black Erasure in Boston." The full documentary. I'm just going to play a little bit of the start of it. Then I want you to go into how, when you start. I know you're involved with the Revolutionary Black Network, people like Nick Cruz and J.B. Font and those wonderful people, and you believe in direct action on the ground and all that stuff. You're really carrying the working class personification forward, and that's wonderful. But you made this documentary, and since we only have a half hour, I really want you to talk about this because I think everybody should watch this, because this isn't just happening in Boston, people. It's happening everywhere, and they're not just removing black and brown people. They're moving anybody this is a class war against the working class, and this is how they do it. Under the guise of improving the area where you live, you end up having these people come in and put up these new developments, and suddenly the people that are there can't afford to live there. Let's watch the first few minutes of this.
Boston, Massachusetts, home of winning sports teams, elite universities, and sometimes a lot of snow. But some might say that there are 2 Bostons. I came to Boston to attend Northeastern University for grad school, but there was something about Boston that was noticeable to me. It almost felt as though Boston had effectively hidden its Black population. So I had to ask myself, what happened to all the Black people?
All right, that's good. That's people get an idea of what you're talking what we're going to be talking about. So, what was your experience making that film? How did it open your eyes to what's going on?
It reminded me of some of the gentrification patterns that I've seen in other cities that I lived in New York, Brooklyn in particular. There's a lot of gentrification that's happening in Brooklyn, but it reminded me of some of the gentrification that's taking place in Charleston, South Carolina as well. So it's more noticeable, I think, in the Northeast, but it's also happening in the South as well. One of the things that I learned is that, there is something called segregation by design. It was a book titled that. And when you come into cities like Boston and New York, Detroit's another example of this. There were actually like these designs that were intentional to bring in a highway to come through the city, usually through a black neighborhood that would separate, basically create a barrier around that neighborhood. A lot of times what you'll find is that those plans were put in place and they tore down housing so that they could make way for the highway, but the highway was never built, right? So, and there was nothing really like, done about that. Urban renewal, a big part of the problem that we talked about as well, which was supposed to be a solution to redlining, that just actually led to gentrification. And the reality is, like, if you just don't have the money, it's like you don't have a voice, right? Like, this couldn't happen in Newton, Massachusetts, because a lot of the people there are relatively wealthy. Newton's very rich. Can't happen in Concord, Massachusetts, right? Like, so it can't happen in places where people have a lot of money. But when you're in those lower income neighborhoods, developers see that as fair game and they know the property value is very low. So they can just come in, tear down your housing, buy up that land, and build something there that we call them yuppies, like the yuppies will love, whether it's a Whole Foods grocery store or a juice bar, those types of things. And sometimes something like a brewery can lead to that as well. So it's an ongoing pattern and it's happening all across the country.
So, do you think, Don, that this is we'll talk about the bigger picture in this, it is going all across the country, and this is part of the ruling elites' a plan to to put chains on the working class because of they're afraid of independent voices, an independent working class, middle class that has enough power to, have enough income to have leisure time and enough time to think about what's going on politically. And this way they can keep you down, keep you working 2-3 jobs without ever being able to do anything about it. And it depresses the voter turnout because this creates apathy amongst the public, and they think, oh, there's nothing I can do about it. They stop voting and they stop caring. They stop attending city councils and stuff like that. And their PTA, they give up. Do you think that's part of the plan?
Sure. I mean, this is where, that's why the subtitle of Survival of the Richest is the greatest conspiracy of all. I mean, the greatest conspiracy, I'm into conspiracies. The greatest conspiracy of all is the very wealthy against the rest of us, and has been, probably throughout history. And it's certainly more, and Sabby talked about gentrification. I used to go to Atlantic City a lot, and but they didn't have any casinos around here, and it always amazed me because you had all this wealth there and there, but all around Atlantic City was really you didn't walk out there at night. It was really bad area, lots of poverty, and they gentrified it up about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago or so. Put all the chain stores in there that she's talking about, Starbucks and all these, Coach Purses stores and things like that. And all those people disappeared. And I wondered when I went there, I said, I wonder where they went. Where did they just vanish? I mean, they had to have found housing because you didn't see them on anywhere. You didn't see homeless on the street or anything. They just were gone. So and it's very, but certainly when you talk about this, that's why, I talk so much about Huey Long, and he remains my hero because he's the only man in political history that literally talked about class exclusively. This is the guy in 1930 South who they can't find a racist comment ever that he ever uttered. He talked about the poor people, and he was beloved by poor people of all colors. He wanted a 30-hour, maybe 20-hour work week in the 1930s and a month vacation for everybody. That's what he was advocating. His share of the wealth society, no taxes on the first $1 million of income. Huey knew where the money was. He was already talking about foundations and one of the first critics of the Federal Reserve. And they assassinated him after he predicted they would on the floor of the Senate. There's no question he did. But, and without Huey Long's pressure, the one good thing that came out of the New Deal was the 1938 legislation that set up the 40-hour work week, the concept of overtime. People didn't have vacations before that. No, people, my great grandparents, stuff, they never I don't think they ever saw the ocean. They don't went on vacations. Nobody did. You couldn't. And if you got sick, well, my grandfather, got cancer and he worked up to 2 weeks until he died as a security guard because he didn't have sick leave. They didn't have that. 1938 legislation changed that, and that was due to Huey Long wanting more than that. But unfortunately, we're going in the opposite direction. And now you can see people would like to eliminate overtime and eliminate these kinds of things, bring back child labor and all kinds of bad stuff.
Yeah, I was thinking about Huey Long. An updated version of that would be in the late 60s when the Black Panther movement started talking about getting together with poor whites. I think which one of the leaders was that? He ended up getting shot, but he was trying to he was talking about the class war. Martin Luther King Jr. also, he didn't get assassinated until he actually started talking about
the Poor People's March on Washington. And what happened was after that Poor People's March on Washington fizzled out because with Huey Long and Martin Luther King, other people, a lot of this is personality driven. That's what the Trump thing is personality. People are driven to personalities. When Huey Long died, his movement died. When Martin Luther King died, the civil rights movement effectively died. Ralph Abernathy, I think, led the Poor People's, but it was a nothing burger. If Martin Luther King had led it, it would have been something different entirely.
And I'd like Sabby's input on the Black Panther thing. The way they were, the way they were presented in the mainstream media was this evil militant cult that were out to come get you and rape all the white women. But they were one of the very first community organizations that had some hope to bring the working class together, both black, white, whatever color you were.
That's right. Fred Hampton. Fred Hampton started that Rainbow Coalition. Yeah, and we were taught that in school too. In my history class, I was taught that the Black Panthers were a militant, radical group. I had to do my own research, right? So they didn't tell us that the Black Panthers were doing mutual aid, that they started free breakfast for kids in the neighborhood, that they were doing like a grocery like drop off. They didn't tell us those things, that they started like free clinics or anything. They just said it was a radical militant group. So I think that with Fred Hampton, his idea was, well, let's go talk to, there was a group called the Young Patriots. Let's go talk to them. Let's go talk to, the Young Lords. The Young Lords was I think the Puerto Rican group. And the whole idea was, well, let's see if we can get some type of a rainbow coalition that focuses on the class. Like, we're all at the bottom. We're all poor. What if we can come together for that? Now, some people did not go along with this. There were some members of the Black Panther Party that didn't want that to happen. So they left. And there were members of the Young Patriots and the Young Lords that also left because they said, no, we don't want to do, this coalition that you're talking about. But the ones who did stay, ultimately this is a powerful thing when you can have people come together because of class consciousness and the class issues. And I think that, I've been saying this for a long time, that we really do need to have a class movement in this country. And it has to be, they say you need 5% of the population to really affect like change or something like that. So in order for that to happen, I think people are going to have to get outside of their political bubbles. And I think the reason why that ultimately has not happened is because people are in like these political silos. It's right. Like it's the red team, it's the blue team, and you shouldn't cross that line and talk to someone on the other side. And I think as long as people continue to do that, the rich will just continue to get richer.
And I think it's important to remember that I learned about Operation COINTELPRO. I think when I was in my 20s, I had, that stuff they don't teach you in school. So later on in my 20s, I started reading all these conspiracy theory books and stuff. I found out about Operation COINTELPRO and how the FBI, CIA, they break up these working class from the ground up organizations by inserting their people inside and driving the divide and conquer.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
happens over and over again. And the best thing we can do is to wake people up to be aware to this, because when somebody suddenly appears inside your group and starts talking about divisive issues and starts bringing up drama and always trying to break up that's a person you should know right now. We have to be suspect of him. Somebody who's driving the divide instead of the unity is somebody we should be really aware of.
Or someone that tries to prevent things from happening. Like if you're trying to plan some type of a march or an event or something that will bring people together, someone that always comes up with all these excuses and reasons why it can't happen.
Yeah.
That's a stalling tactic, and that's an old CIA trick.
Yeah, and it happens over and over again. So people, this divide and conquer agenda only works as long as you are unaware of it. Once you wake up to the propaganda techniques and start teaching that, and that it loses a lot of its power. I think one of the things that Sabby has been really good on lately is her BS detector. She can smell a false flag coming a mile away. You nailed the one in New Orleans. Especially when the media lady, I think she's working for CBS. She goes inside the house and she says, "Yes, this radical Muslim terrorist committed this horrible crime," but she's allowed to just waltz in past the police line, and she goes right up to a cran that's open to the page where it says something that we must kill all the infidels. Oh, it just happens to be open right to this page, and Sabby called it out immediately. That's what I admire about you, and also. The Kamala Harris thing. When she came out and said that she washed her color, she was trying to, appear relatable to the black folks to get the black vote. And she started talking about how she washed her collard greens in a bathtub. Sabby, please expand on that. How you noticed that was so stupid.
Yeah, that was wild. That is not how you make collard greens. We don't put food in the bathtub. So a lot of us caught onto that one very early. I was like, what is she talking about? And it's just, that element of trying too hard, right?
Yeah.
Instead of just being yourself.
Yeah.
I think that was very recognizable. So I would have to say more people are calling out the false flags now too. Like whether it's viewers or, people that I meet like in person. I haven't met one person yet who believes that Tyler Robinson killed Charlie Kirk.
Correct.
Yeah.
Only the online
does.
only the online personalities that are I think associated with the agenda. The ones that are trying to say, "Oh, don't get mad at Erica Kirk, the widow. How dare you?" Well, her actions and her words are screaming that there's something horribly wrong, especially when they had the memorial and she's coming out to fireworks and stuff, and she introduces Donald Trump and endorses JD Vance, and there's massive ads for Palantir all across the arena. Like, I mean, all you have to do is take a look. What do you think, Don?
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. I mean, I've written a lot about Erica Kirk, and she may be the single biggest walking psyop I've ever seen. But I would go back when Gabby was talking about Fred Hampton. I mean, Fred Hampton was assassinated by the FBI or the police. We know that. But what I talked about in my book, Hidden History, is just doing a little research. You find Fred Hampton's bodyguard was an undercover government agent.
Yeah.
So was Malcolm X's.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King, you see that photo of him on the balcony of the Lane Motel. There's a guy cradling his arms in his head. That guy was an admitted CIA asset. I think he's still alive. So this is the problem. They have, and I talked a lot about this, the Black Panthers and the KKK on the other side. Like there were 4 KKK members, supposed that killed Viola Luizio, who was an early civil rights worker in the South in the early 60s. And one of them in the car was an FBI agent. And I don't know if he knew they were going to shoot somebody or what, but the FBI and the CIA infiltrated, and the FBI as well, law enforcement, infiltrated groups like the Black Panthers and the KKK, both the ends of the political spectrum, because they want to control everything. They go back to Lenin, who said the best way to control opposition is to lead it. And our government has always operated on that premise. That's why I mentioned Nick Fuentes. I mean, I can't prove anything, but to me, that guy has all the earmarks of somebody that was installed. I don't
Yeah.
think there's anything legitimate about him, but I don't know that for sure, but that's the impression I get.
Yeah, I think you're right there, and I think your BS detector is just as honed as Sabby's. Now, Sabby, you've been with us. It's 5:30 now, or 7:30 your time. Do you want to say goodbye and take off and go pick up your family, and I'll run your scroll?
Sure thing. Thank you so much for having me on, RB. And Don, so nice to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you too. I'd love
Yeah,
to talk further with you. I admire what you're doing.
yeah. Well, you guys can. I'll make sure you guys get both contact info. Maybe you can go on her show and you can go on his show. He'd be a great guest to have on for a 15, 20 minutes spot to talk about all these the FBI infiltration of working class organizations, because they have a long history of it. And I think J. Edgar Hoover, even before they formed the FBI, he was one of those guys in World War I who was working with that started the very first Red Scare before McCarthy ever even thought
Palm
about
raids, sure, yeah.
the Palmer paper. I mean, the Palmer raids were something like, I think they were using anarchy. They were using anarchists, and they would supply them with the bombs. The anarchists would blow something up, and then they'd arrest the anarchists and say, "Yay, we solved the crime!" And that seems to be a reoccurring thing. So thank you, Sabrina, for being here, and I hope to see you soon. And I'll talk to you on our next call. And bye-bye, and thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
Thanks. Take care.
That was wonderful. She could only give us a half hour, Don, but that's okay. I had all kinds of stuff lined up for the bigger picture, but I think I wanted to talk to you about this, because I think this is very, very, very important. You know how Donald Trump said there's going to be no boots on the ground, and after Iraq, and and JD Vance and all that, and everybody, swear to God, I mean, this is why Donald Trump was elected. This is why his coalition got in charge, because they promised the very thing that they're doing now. This just came in. The U.S. Marine Corps just told its reservists to check their readiness for possible large-scale mobilization linked to Iran. Readiness will be assumed, not questioned. The active duty Marines just arrived on an amphibious assault ship. Now they're calling the reserves. So that's ominous, and I'll stop sharing that because there's the paper. I guess I can show that to you, but I mean, it's from Leonard F. Anderson, Lieutenant General, U.S. Marine Corps, Commander, Marine Forces Reserve and Marine Forces South. And he writes right here, it says, "Fights on." He signed it, and yeah, he's calling up the reserve. So that's one thing to be ominous about. And here's another thing that is to be ominous about. I mean, just in effective April 20th, 2026, on 420, of course, right? Because when I read this, you'll get the giggle out of it. The U.S. Army is increasing the maximum enlistment age from 34 to 42 and eliminating waiver requirements for a single conviction of possession of marijuana. So on 420, they announced it, let alone.
Yeah, how about that?
So they're obviously planning something. I mean, they're not building up all those forces in the Middle East for nothing. But I'm going to stop showing that. So any active soldiers out there, if you know any active soldiers out there, tell them to go to you can follow the Center on Conscience and War. And for over 85 years, this organization has helped U.S. service members and conscientious objectors call for free professional counseling at this number. But you can follow them on Twitter. But they are saying they're overwhelmed with calls of people in the forces right now that don't want to go and die for Israel, and there's going to be just a ton of these people not wanting to go along with this. I don't think they can go through with this. This is the most this is the most unpopular war ever from the start of it. The Iraq War, everybody was they were fooled enough by 9/11 and stuff, and they were gung ho for it. Vietnam, gung ho for it at the start. These wars usually are popular at the start, then they start to wane. I've never seen them trying to start a war where it's unpopular at the start. There's only 30% of the population that's for this. How are they going to get away with this, Don?
What's scary is that 30% of the population is for it. But yeah, I mean, it's and again, a lot of this has to do with Trump and his personality and the fact that he is deteriorating before our eyes mentally. And you're not going to be able to sell any kind of war when Trump is the commander in chief right now, especially the way he is, where he's saying, ridiculous stuff, and they can't even keep up with the stuff he's said on social media, but it's mind-boggling to listen to it. It's like a toddler's in charge, and, there's there's no rhyme or reason for this. No one can give an excuse for it. It's so obvious, and we didn't get to Sabby wasn't here long enough to talk about what I think is the biggest issue today, and that is that exposure of the rift between Zionists and non-Zionists, and that's destroying the left-right paradigm, because you can see the right is being completely fractured. We have people like the big names like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens and even Joe Rogan, people like that that are criticizing Israel, criticizing Zionist power. And then you have the other side, which is the new MAGA, which is completely all never Trumpers, like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro, who voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016, by the way. That's who Trump's biggest aides are now. His Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, people like that. Even J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance didn't like him either. So that's what's left of the MAGA movement. Marjorie Taylor Greene, all these people who were very loyal to him, they're gone. So the right has been divided. The left is, for the most part, lined up against Trump, if for nothing else other than the fact that most of them have TDS, so they hated him anyhow. And certainly the people like the Squad and people like that are concerned with the Middle Eastern policy don't like this. So I don't know how they can sell this. But the problem is, it's like being in quicksand. They're in a quagmire now. I mean, taking that first step was just so stupid. And I don't know what you do, because this is the first time I've seen, we picked on these smaller countries my entire life. And, even we've never seen a country act the way Iran is acting. Iran is talking back. They're talking back, and they had the guy in there that was trolling Trump, and Trump's the master troll, and they trolled him saying, "You're fired. Thank you for your attention to this matter." So he has to be fuming over this. They're not backing down, and the entire world. We were talking on American Unplugged today about the dollar, how it's dying as world currency, and you have everybody in Europe except for France, all of them turned us down cold and said, "F you." When Trump said, "Hey, let's help open up can you help us open up the Strait of Hormuz?" None of them said, "No, we're not getting involved." Canada, is saying, "No, forget it." England, these are supposedly our greatest allies next to Israel, of course. So we're in this by ourselves with Israel, and Israel is becoming a pariah to the world. Finally, people are realizing. You saw that good-looking I don't know what she is, but she's a high-ranking official in Spain that came right out and said, "Hey, we have to do something about Israel. If we don't do something, they're a danger to the entire world." They have the Samson option, and what are we doing denying nuclear, saying that Iran and North Korea and countries, rogue nations like that, are too irresponsible to have nuclear weapons, but a nation like Israel that has given itself a special option, a Samson option, which means if they feel threatened, they reserve the right to blow up as much of the world as they want. And they can have nuclear. I mean, this is insanity, and the problem is that most of the world sees it that way now. Our leadership knows it's in a minority, and every day, more and more people understanding because there's not gonna be any good news that's gonna happen. I mean, Lincoln, go back to the Civil War, Lincoln won, with a lot of fraud, but he won the 1865 election because the North had some great victories right before the election. And people, can be persuaded very, easily. I don't see the US having any kind of victories here, because even if they win, they're losing by attrition. We don't know how much military equipment they've lost. Pete Hegseth is already asking for another $200 billion. And when I wrote my latest Substack article, I talked in there about how we are already spending $21 million a second in Iran. That's absolute lunacy. And again, I think there's no way just like there's no way I keep talking about Zionism is collapsing because you can't intellectually defend Zionism. It's impossible. And you're seeing that none of these people are able to do it. So it's with Mike Huckabee, Ted Cruz, some of these entertainers, they can't do it. Because what are you gonna do other than call everybody anti-Semitic? That's the only argument you have. Because you took people's land, you've treated them terribly, and now you're acting like a bully and the worst neighbor in the world in the Middle East, so everyone hates you except us. And you're expecting America to keep going to bat for you when our own country is collapsing, and we're putting all these resources over there. It's madness. And if we had any kind of control over our politicians, we would have nothing but anti-Zionists in Congress. Instead, we have nothing but Zionists.
Hey, I wanted to show this to you. So we've grown up under the idea of American propaganda being so powerful, right? Especially during like World War II, how American propaganda was so powerful because they had essentially they were right. Like they had the moral high ground, so their propaganda worked better than the German propaganda, right? So now it's been reversed because we have to remember Israel and the United States started this war, and what was the first target? A girls' school, and they killed innocent children. And so watch this counter propaganda from Iran. It's powerful, and it starts to make, and you start to see that this is how you lose your grip on power, is when you lose the hearts and minds of the people. And I don't know what they thought of if they, let's go kill their spiritual leader and then kill some girls, some elementary girls in a school. I'm sure that will get them on. That will get them on our side. So watch this. This is amazing. Wow, eh? And did you notice that what was that song playing at the end? Ride of the Valkyries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Eh?
it's great. It's great. There's so much about our American lunacy that we can be spoofed. You're not going to see it in our media. So it's nice to see something like that because it's if I lived in the Middle East, I would think I would be calling America the Great Satan too. I mean,
Yeah.
what else would you call them? At this point.
Yeah. And the thing is that with their propaganda, they're connecting to the poor and oppressed all across the world and through time and space. I'm going to play this. This is their latest one, and I wanted to get Sabby's input on this, but this is incredible. Because just watch this. All the people that they're paying homage to when they're fighting back against what's happening to them. That's an American Indian first, Black African. They sent off to slavery. Chinese peasants. Epstein people. I want to quickly. They do it quick, so you don't see it. Hold on. Let me go back right here. Malcolm X, the feature. Mm-hmm. If you are neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. I mean, this is effective.
Rachel's Corey.
So, in memory of the American Indians, too. For the victims of the American prisoners in Iraq. I don't know why they brought the Titanic in there, but remember that's a good old conspiracy theory that the Titanic
Yeah.
was sunk on purpose to
Yeah.
bring in the Federal Reserve. Okay, I just want to mention that I'm not actually on board for the one vengeance for all idea, though. I have a problem with vengeance. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord.
Yep.
It's not something that is subscribed to us. And with vengeance, there's a problem because an eye for an eye leaves the whole world blind. One justice for all. And the whole idea of you see they're blowing up the White House, they're blowing up effigies of Trump and Netanyahu and stuff, but they're not significantly understanding that will be looked upon by the people who support this war as a real-time threat, right? Oh, they're after us now, right? They're going to come over and they're going to destroy our country, and so they're going to double. So it's going to double down back against them, because Don, as well as I do, that 30% of the base, these neocon followers who are, American exceptionalists. Now they're going to double down. They're going to triple down. So this is just going to lead to more problems. It's a wonderful piece of propaganda, but it's not the answer. It's wonderful that they're recognizing Rachel Corrie. That was really wonderful. And what we did as a culture when the Europeans came over and colonized North and South America. Yeah, horrible things were done. But there was a noble purpose behind it later on, the idea of the Bill of Rights, the idea of the American Constitution, all men are created equal, and that eventually Black people in the United States and Native people here in Canada did fight back for their power, and they recognize that it's an imperfect system, but the idea of the Bill of Rights is wonderful. The idea of the rights of man is wonderful. What Franklin FDR's vice president, Mr. Wallace, was trying to do, the rights of man, and at the end of World War II, is a noble cause, and that sort of idea gets shut down when you start talking about vengeance and you kill my kid, I'll kill your kid. Where does it end? Right? There should be reconciliation. This is not going in the right way.
No, it's not. But I mean, again, you can hardly. At this point, I can't really blame what we're doing to Iran and what we have done. We've screwed with them since the early 1950s when we overthrew Mossadegh. And I think I'm the only one left that's talking about the civilian airline. The U.S. shot down the Iranian civilian airline in 1988, killed 298 people on board. What would we do if somebody shot down one of our airplanes, a foreign government, and killed people? You're muted. I can't hear you. You're muted, I think.
Sorry.
Yes.
I said it was mentioned. They did mention that in that video. That was shown in there too.
Oh, I missed it.
In memory of the flights of Iranian.
Oh, okay. Well, they definitely should have missed that. I mentioned that because that was theirs. But I mean, we certainly didn't acknowledge. George H.W. Bush famously said, "America doesn't apologize." I mean, that's what he said. I mean, this is so it's kind of it wasn't quite as crude as Donald Trump stuff, but I mean, this is and we obviously did it. And again, we just much as Israel when they attacked the Liberty, they didn't acknowledge it. We don't acknowledge it. And in fact, we blame the Iranians for it themselves. I remember at the time reading about it. It was only in the Spotlight, the little anti-Semitic newspaper. Nobody else covered it. But so we've done lots of horrible things to me, even when they had the hostages in Iran. They didn't kill any of them. They were, they were trying to using whatever leverage they had because we had been screwing around in their country forever. And again, this is what happens when that's why, George Washington's advice about no entangling alliances, John Quincy Adams, America doesn't go abroad in search of foreign monsters to destroy. That's what we're doing, the exact opposite. And we always have. And that's why Donald Trump was the first guy to come along, other than like Pat Buchanan and people that never got any votes. The first person that had a chance to win that talked about the senseless wars and America first. This is the farthest thing from America First imaginable, and you can see what happens. It's this, this is why I quote James Forrestal all the time, this German Secretary of Defense, before they pushed him out of a window at Bethesda Naval Hospital, because he said, "Look, if this wasn't a great conspiracy, once in a while they'd make a mistake in our favor. There's nothing random about it.
Mhm.
It's always because and these people aren't stupid. They look at, I mean, we just in the last 25 years, what we've done with the no-win wars, the situations in Iraq and Afghanistan alone. Why would you? What we're doing is it's going to be worse than Afghanistan because Iran has even tougher terrain. It's bigger, and you have all these mountains. There's no way to win a war there. It's
92
ridiculous.
million people live there. It's
It's,
3
it's
times the size of Iraq. It's twice the size of Afghanistan.
yeah, and
And they
so it's
can't and the did you of course, you heard the Houthis have now entered the war, right? And they're gonna close the Red Sea. And guess what? The Houthis, bombed for 8 years by Saudi Arabia and a US coalition, and they're still there. You can't beat the Houthis, you're gonna oh my god, what are you guys
I
doing? Of
I I
course,
s- I talked
unless
about
unless they don't wanna win the war after all, Don, because I wanna share this.
no, they
The
don't want
war is
to.
not meant to be won, as George Orwell said.
Exactly,
The
exactly.
war is not meant to be won, it is meant to be continuous. Hierarchical society is only possible on the basis of poverty and ignorance. In principle, the war effort is always planned to keep society on the brink of starvation. George Orwell, 1984. And here's a 30-second clip from Mr. Julian Assange, and I think this is when they really went after him.
Because the goal is not to completely subjugate Afghanistan. The goal is to use Afghanistan to wash money out of the tax bases of the United States, out of the tax bases of European countries, through Afghanistan and back into the hands of a transnational security elite. That is the goal, i.e. the goal is to have an endless war, not a successful war.
The idea is to have an endless war, not a successful war. Boom. That's how the military industrial complex survives. I think we
Because
learned that from Vietnam. Remember all the soldiers and
yes,
the generals, we're not being allowed to win this war. What's going on?
and it goes
Right?
back to Korea. It
Yeah.
goes back even before that, and MacArthur, I mean, MacArthur had a lot of faults, but MacArthur was a real soldier, and he attempted to win the war. I mean, why are you waging war if you're not gonna try to win it? And Truman fired him. Said, "No, no, no, we got demarcation zones, we got all these places you can't go. You can't have those kind of ridiculous rules of engagement." So Korea was a pointless bloodletting for nothing, and I recently wrote about war on Substack when I talked about the death totals from all these military misadventures. Vietnam, we know more about because it was even more ridiculous and again senseless bloodletting. And then from then all our senseless wars in the Middle East, and we've never tried to. We haven't won any of them. And we're not gonna try because they know they can't win this. I mean, they may be using Donald Trump because he's now got dementia or something, and he can't figure it out anyhow. But those people know that they can't win this war. Pete Hegseth, I mean, if you think, how are you? I said my sister married an Iranian, so I have a connection there. I've met so many Iranians over the years, and they're great people, but the men are very macho, way more macho than in this country, and they are never going to back down. They don't care what the odds are. That's why you see the great little Palestinian kids throwing rocks at the tanks. That's what they have in them. They believe, they have to fight with what they have. You're gonna have to kill every last one of them, and I'm sure maybe Israel would like to do that at least. But, unless you're planning to do that, and that's gonna take a lot of money, a lot of time, you're gonna lose a lot of your people to begin with, you're gonna completely bankrupt your country. I don't think that's what they want, but I do think as Assange talked about and what Orwell wrote about, the war is meant to be it's not meant to be won. It's to distract us because look what's happened. Look what's distracted not only the Epstein files, but from
Mhm.
all the things that Trump falsely promised he was gonna do.
Mhm.
Doge was shut down, we're still paying taxes, and he talked about getting rid of all income taxes and, getting rid of the IRS, a $5,000 Doge, refund, tariff refunds, all that's gone, and it's all on this stupid, pointless war in Iran, and he's been able to convert too many of the people in MAGA into mindless people who are now saying, "Yeah, that this is America first." Up is down, war is peace. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, and remember Trump got And Trump got elected because he was going to fight the globalists. Well, now he's actually carrying out the globalist plan. This is from Max Blumenthal. And I've got a few of these I want to show people here. The International Energy Agency has published a 10-point Great Reset style plan to adapt behavior to the energy crisis caused by the US-Israel war in Iran. The plan follows the IEA's facilitation of the war by releasing 400 million barrels of oil from emergency reserves. So they're already talking about, and I'll stop showing that, energy lockdowns. And I want to read this whole thing by Robin Minotti. This is brilliant. This is from Professor Fabio Virgil. Energy lockdown, war, oil, and the coming financial reset. Oil as strategic shock. The surge in oil prices, along with its volatility, functions as a strategic weapon. It is comparable to a silent pandemic, a COVID encore, if you will, that incapacitates the world's economies and, crucially, justifies massive monetary interventions aimed at rescuing the overinflated, credit-addicted markets and sustain the increasingly fragile dollar-based architecture. The bill for this rescue, as always, will not be presented to the markets themselves. It will be paid by the average person through the erosion of wages and savings, the devaluation of pensions, and the steady transfer of wealth upward, dressed in the language of stability. In this sense, the emergency energy crisis resembles a macroeconomic shock comparable to that of the pandemic era, since that policy responses may ultimately follow a similar trajectory. During the COVID emergency, large-scale monetary interventions began even before lockdowns were implemented. In September 2019, the U.S. repo market crisis forced the Federal Reserve to inject massive liquidity through daily auctions. When the pandemic, so-called, arrived months later, the emergency provided political justification for expanding those interventions dramatically. The crisis did not cause the intervention. The intervention was already primed, and the crisis provided the cover. Energy shocks can play a similar role. By destabilizing debt and equity markets and threatening recession, they create the conditions under which large monetary responses become both politically acceptable and economically unavoidable. As with COVID, this is not merely crisis management, it is another case of crisis deployment. In my earlier essay, The Programmable Crisis, I suggested that the US and Israel initiated this war precisely to produce an energy shock large enough to cascade into a global financial crisis, one that would clear the path for a systemic reset aimed at prolonging the life of an exhausted, debt-saturated system. Seen from this perspective, the war is a trigger mechanism for that reset. To read the conflict through the familiar narrative of Iran's nuclear program means mistaking the decoy for the target. The Middle East war has already impacted on global markets. European gas prices spiked 25 to 30% in a single session. Brent crude surged above $110, and historic $50 plus split emerged between WTI and physical Oman Dubai crude, a sign that the paper oil market is rapidly decoupling from physical supply stress. One of the clearest signals of how quickly this crisis could reshape policy comes from recent recommendations by the IEA, who we just referenced. In response to escalating supply risks, the agency has proposed measures that would have been familiar during the COVID lockdowns: working from home where possible, cutting highway speed limits, limiting air travel, increasing car sharing, and restricting car access in major cities. And remember, this is going to happen with food prices too. So we're talking about they'll be looking at cutting, rationing food pretty soon, or water too. The justification is energy security rather than public health. Yet the logic is strikingly similar to pandemic-era policies. Faced with a shock to that energy system, authorities may again be turning to behavioral constraints on mobility and consumption as tools of macroeconomic control. In fact, a pandemic without virus logic is already being operationalized. Overall, the conditions for a systemic reset are falling into place. An escalating energy shock, an unwinding everything bubble, and a mounting global credit crisis are converging into a single destabilizing moment. That was so well written and so well thought out, and it makes sense. I mean, the whole Great Reset plan, right? They talked about the pandemic, but they needed other things. They talked about energy shocks. Remember Klaus Schwab talking, we must prepare for an angrier world, right? Food rationing, all that stuff, because of climate change. Climate change lockdowns are coming next, energy lockdowns. I mean, if this gets bad enough, and it will, because Australia's already run out of diesel, Don. Australia has already run out of diesel. Farmers can't plant. That's going to bring famine. Truck drivers can't bring goods to stores. It can go boom, boom, boom so quick.
Yeah, no, there's no question about it. And again, everything we're looking at, and this is the more I study history, the more again. That's why I look at somebody like a Huey Long still. It's just an
Be
anomaly,
right
or even
back.
John F.
You keep
Even
talking.
John
I'll
F.
be back.
Yeah, even John F. Kennedy, who was an idealist. We don't have any idealists today. What we have is this. It's something like this. They're setting forth a bunch of really negative things, a bunch of bleak potential outcomes. And that's where we are. There's if you look at all we know these things are going to happen, but there's no one trying to stop it. There's no one saying, "Well, it doesn't have to be this way. We can stop this. The inmates don't have to be running the asylum, but they are." And I don't think the inmates are running the asylum because we just let crazy people do it. I think again, there's method to their madness. They want to keep us distracted, obviously, from their corruption because they are corrupt and they're never held accountable. They're still not going to be, certainly not by the Trump administration. They've done nothing in terms of prosecuting a single swap creature. They haven't drained it at all. So the idea that with all this stuff going on, all they do is present us with these really doom and gloom scenarios, and that's what's there because nobody else. But you had somebody like Huey Long and it's a winning political formula. And Trump kind of used it. He was more critical, but when you present the people, hey, this is we have. I when I wrote the updated version of the paperback that Naomi Wolf probably would never have a form for another book of mine. I guarantee you, probably at this point, without disagreement over Israel. But I found a figure that was amazing, and that's what if you divided up all the wealth in America, this is a known wealth. As is, we have so much wealth that's not known. For instance, with the obviously the Fed's never been audited. None of the big foundations have ever been audited. We don't know the extent of all the offshore profits that are kept offshore. But the known wealth, if you divided that all up in America between every man, woman, and child, it would come to $344,000 per individual for every man, woman, and child. Now, I'm not suggesting we do that. I mean, that would be total socialism or whatever. But it shows you how unfair the system is because you don't have to divide it up that way, but it ought to be much fairer than what it is. Instead, we have the bottom 50%, the 50% of Americans have less than 1% of the collective wealth. The bottom half of America has nothing. I write about that, and nobody talks about them. You're not going to see them on television or anything. They're not going to. Their concerns aren't. You might use them in terms of you might go to a black neighborhood maybe to try to score some racial points, but nothing ever gets done. That's this is what made Huey Long so special, and what made John F. Kennedy still resonate is that he was the last really positive. Well, you can say Reagan was positive in a different way, but Kennedy was the last idealist, I think, to serve in office. Something like the Peace Corps was an idealistic thing. The Alliance for Progress, idealistic thing. And you don't see that now. All we're offered is, yeah, we all know the criticism. Trump was great on pointing out all the flaws, and it needs to be pointed out. But there were no real concrete positive solutions to it. He would make promises that he never kept, and it's still doing. Maybe I'll do this, maybe I'll do that. And of course, he never did any of it. But you have solutions. Huey Long had a share the wealth program, and he had it mapped out. It was very detailed. He had economists working on it. It can be done. We can solve these problems. One of my other favorites is Henry David Thoreau, who wrote Walden, and he was the inventor of civil disobedience. He doesn't get credit for it. It wasn't Martin Luther King, it wasn't Gandhi, it was Henry David Thoreau. And he famously went to prison, not just because his taxes supported slavery, but he didn't like the way his taxes were spent at all. And that was then, when obviously you're talking about much, much lower taxes. But Thoreau had a saying where he simplify. His credo was simplify, simplify. He believed that things were much simpler. I believe that too. I think these things are easy to fix, but they're not going to ever be able to be fixed if the people who have too much will not sacrifice anything. And that's the problem. That was my point on my book, Survival of the Richest. When they talk about sacrificing, it's the people that have already sacrificed enough and cannot sacrifice anymore. That's what you can't get any kind of political solution to the many problems we face unless you make the people that have too much already sacrifice and you
That's
redistribute some of that wealth, you make things fair. And I know nobody's talking about that. Bernie Sanders maybe in kind of a vague way, but that's what needs to be done. And it couldn't be more clear now when you're spending $21 million a second in Iraq, yet you don't have money to fix our roads and bridges. You haven't touched the infrastructure for over 60 years. You have people in the streets, sleeping in the streets, and you can't even clean the crap off the streets. And somehow you don't have money or resources to do that. You
I,
can't
I, wa-
figure out how to do it.
I want to quickly back up what you said. You think the United States is bad? It's bad here in Canada too. This is from Dmitry Lascaris, who's right now over in Iran. Right now, he's a journalist. He's over in Iran right now, reporting from the places in Iran. He was reporting from Minab today. So follow Dmitry Lascaris, everybody, on X, because he's doing great work. He's a Canadian lawyer who is on the right side of history. He's a great man, and let's pray for his safety over in Iran while he's reporting from there. But he had time to post this. In Canada, this is in Canada, where we're supposed to have this great socialist government. We're supposed to have all this great equity here. In Canada, the richest 1% are now as wealthy as the poorest 80%. No society that is this unequal can possibly be democratic. The wealthy simply have too much power to control the media and bend the political elite to their will. Canada ain't no democracy. It never was. And this is from the Maple. You can look it up. Canada's richest 1%, nearly as wealthy as the poorest 80%. So it's not just an American phenomenon. It's throughout Western society. It's in Europe. It's everywhere, and it's on steroids.
It is. And then when I was researching the Survival of the Richest, I mean, it's those numbers were everywhere, and they vary a little bit. They're very slightly, but they all tell the same story about way too much power concentrated in way too few hands. It's as simple as that. And when that statistic, when you have that much wealth in America, I don't know what it would be in Canada, but we are just incredibly wealthy. It's just first of all, we don't prioritize anything. We don't spend anything on the people. Say what you want about China. And China right now is very smart in comparison to they're not fighting any wars. They're putting money into their society. Yeah, yes, they're controlling their people, but we are too. And I can't tell you how many people I have on my Substack that tell me that have lived in China and still live there, that life is much better there, that they actually freer there. I don't know that it's true. It goes against everything I've been told,
Well,
but
I want to quickly say it would be great to live in China at any time, except when COVID was happening. I mean,
yeah.
there was no Freedom Trucker convoy in China.
No, it wasn't that, but as bad as China may be, you can look, they have rapid, the bullet trains or whatever, and that kind of stuff. Their infrastructure is clean, updated. I'm sure they have lightning fast internet compared to what we have. I talked about this before. One of the guys I used to work with was from the Dominican Republic, and he would always talk about going home so he could get faster internet. I put that in Survival of the Richest. I mean, we rank very low in terms of internet speed. We're not doing anything right except lining the pockets of the wealthy.
Okay, so going on to my next slide. This is from Catherine Austin Fitz, who's been bang on for the last 20 years. I started following her after 9/11. She used to be in the Reagan administration on the inside, and she saw how the sausage was made, and she's been sounding the alarm ever since. And the people, smart investors have been following her and making good ethical decisions on how to invest their money. She's raising the alarm. We could be on the verge of a major famine and a resulting digital control grid. And she's been talking about this. And this war, of course, provides everything that this is COVID 2.0. What's in it for them? Implementing the control grid and depopulation together. Depopulation, which I've been talking about for a long time. People thought I was crazy. That's what remember those Georgia Guidestones they finally got rid of? They were right in your face what they want to do. They want to depopulate the world, and people go, well, why would they want to do that? Don't they want slaves? What do you think the robots are for, people? So let's listen to Catherine.
But it's a percentage. The Straits of Hormuz are hugely important. So now we're listening to US say, oh, we're helpless up against Iran, who's been suffering under extraordinary sanctions that if that was really true, they wouldn't have all these amazing hypersonic missiles, yada, yada, yada. Okay. And now what we're watching is the entire global economy being severely shut down. So let me give you an example. we're in March. What is March?
What do you mean? What is March?
It's the spring, right?
Right.
What happens in the spring?
Yeah, less demand for fuel, perhaps in the West.
No.
Planting.
Come on, you're in the Netherlands.
Planting.
You're in the Netherlands, one of the greatest food exporters in the world.
Yeah, right. It's a growing season. Yeah.
Farmers plant in the spring. Right now, we are shutting down the critical ingredients to most European factories who make fertilizer,
Yeah.
right? Okay. And so by the time that gets through, whenever it gets through, it's going to be too late to make the fertilizer. You're going to miss the whole spring season. So I don't know. I just saw a headline: Goldman Sachs, leading member of the New York Fed, says that it's going to be shut down for 21 days, right?
Yeah.
Miss the planting season. Okay, so if you look at the material coming through that's critical to chip production, the material coming through the straits that's critical to fertilizer and food, and the material coming through that's critical to energy, you're talking about massive dislocation of the global economy. And if it goes on for long enough, I mean, we have Peru, Thailand, other people talking about doing COVID kind of shutdowns to save gas and fuel.
Yeah.
Right. But you're talking about intentionally shutting down the global economy. And it didn't start with Iran, and it didn't start with the United States. It started with the City of London. So Lloyd's of London shut down the straits with all their insurance company friends and reinsurance company friends, right? So the city shuts down the straits, and now the Iran is helping supposedly to keep it shut down.
Yeah.
Do you buy that story that the U.S. military is helpless?
No, but what I struggle with is it seems like a lot of countries and citizens across the world are going to suffer as a result of this war and as a result of the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. So there will be global disorder and chaos to a large extent. And even if you look at Japan, they're especially vulnerable. But in the Second World War, Japan did Pearl Harbor, at least that's the common story, because they were shut off from the oil market. So when countries are in desperate position, they're going to take desperate measures. So this could easily lead to a much larger world war, this conflict in the Middle East. So that's a huge gamble then that the global elite, for example, are taking, because they run a risk themselves too. If we have a nuclear escalation and a nuclear holocaust, what's in it for them?
So, well, what's in it for them is implementing the control grid and depopulation together.
Yeah.
Is what's in it for them. If this is, because we don't know yet. I think it's too early. I can't tell whether you're looking at massive incompetence on the basis of the U.S. or you're looking at an intentional desire to shut down. So this is COVID 2.0.
Yeah.
Because this is how you shut down. This is a new excuse to shut down to preserve energy and food. I think the big problem here is famine. So you have seen the new administration in the United States systematically cut the domestic funds that are available to support food for poor people in emergencies, as well as the USAID and State Department aid to protect countries that have emergencies, like food. So you have, I don't know, 25 maybe billion dollars traditionally that the US had available to stop famines. That money is all cut, and now you have something that's creating the conditions of famine.
So, behold a pale horse, Don. War, famine, pestilence,
Yeah.
and flying beneath the radar. They just announced that there's a new COVID variant out there, Don. Did you see that one? 25 states are saying, "Oh, there's a new COVID variant just flying out there."
Be scared. Be very scared. Get your next booster. But yeah, she makes a point, and you did too, about and I think we can never the depopulation thing is obviously always front and center because we're run by eugenicists. I think all our leaders, as far as I know, are eugenicists, and they believe in trying to limit and reduce the world population. And we saw this. We've seen so many quotes from world leaders to this effect, and certainly, I think that's what COVID was mainly about. I think ultimately the COVID-19 psyop, I call it the greatest psyop in the history of the world. I think that ultimately it was about seeing how the great culling. We still don't know how many people died as a result of the vaccine, injuries from it as well, and we certainly we know, and my book, Masking the Truth, that you kindly talk about a lot, have all the numbers in there, and it's pretty obvious that the people weren't dying from COVID, whatever it is, and COVID has never been isolated. So COVID-19, and there's a woman in Canada that filed a Freedom of Information lawsuit. I had this in my book that just wanted to see the documentation for when they developed the vaccine. You have to have isolates.
Christine Massey.
Is that Christine Massey, and the government admitted the isolates were unavailable, so we had to simulate COVID-19 by using remnants of the coronavirus, which is the common cold. That's your vaccine.
And how did they do that? They did that through an array system that they ran through a computer program. So it's it's AI. The COVID-19 virus is AI generated.
Exactly, and it's just the entire thing. People believe so many incredibly stupid things, and it's all documented in my book. And the hysteria. Hopefully, if they try it again, I don't think it would be as successful. I think it would probably work to some degree again because again, we're still outnumbered. More people trust this stuff than don't, but it's narrowing. And certainly this war with Iran is not going to make it make more people believe in stuff. So that could be one byproduct of it, but can never forget that these people are on record. They think they're going back to the theory of evolution itself, which is, I've pointed out many times, it's based on the survival of the fittest. So that means by definition that some are not fit. And that's what eugenicism is all about. It comes right out of evolution. They base that on that, is that we need to promote the fittest. And so you had anti-sterilization laws going back to Woodrow Wilson. You'll read about that in American Memory Hole. When he was governor of New Jersey, he started the first forced sterilization program. Great liberal president. And ever since then, and that's what was all those. They felt empowered to experiment on all the prisoners and orphans, and so the Tuskegee experiment, all that stuff, that all grew out of eugenicist thought, because they looked at these people as subhuman and go, well, we can do whatever we want. We'll inject them with herpes, we'll inject them with because they're what are they? They're not fit. And that's the idea, and it still permeates our thoughts. So when you look at that bottom 50% of America, they're basically not fit. If you have less than 1% of the collective wealth, 50% of you, well, I mean, you can't be fit financially, fit economically. So I think that's we need to look at something like this. So when we think of the people that are waging this war, they're not going to look at death and destruction the way that most of us, the people that have a conscience, do. Because this is great for them. The more people they can wipe out, this is what they believe needs to happen. And unfortunately, those are the people that are in charge.
I want to quickly mention that right now I'm actually streaming this whole thing. I've been streaming to YouTube for the very first time. I'm streaming live to YouTube at the same time, and we haven't been kicked off yet, Don. Just want to let you know. For anybody here watching on Rumble, go over to YouTube and type in RB Ham Beyond the Pale. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Let's try to make me grow. Right now, I've only got 3 likes over on my YouTube. Come on, guys, go over to YouTube for a sec. Press like, and then come back to Rumble. And I want to say that Auntie Ann 6971, who is over there in YouTube, is making some really smart comments. She says, "Feels like we're heading into COVID-19 84 phase 2 as we speak." And she says, in 1973 is when things went south and showed the beginnings of the K-shaped economy. Boomers pulled the ladder up behind them. And this No Kings protest is absolutely a co-opted movement too, she says. And I think she's right. I mean, everything seems to be co-opted now. The BLM thing was co-opted right from the start by corporations. And the anti-war movement, remember when the anti-war movement, they were holding the BLM, they were holding up signs with Raytheon on them, and Raytheon was sponsoring gay pride parades and tranny pride
Yeah,
parades.
BLM had these huge moving vans with their
Yeah,
logo on it. How
yeah.
do you get that? I mean, that's not any kind of organic movement. Same thing with Antifa. We don't even know what Antifa is. I mean, I certainly not anti-fascist, but I'm not
And
sure
all
what.
those people out there on the right are saying, "Oh, George Soros is doing all that, blah
Yeah,
blah."
yeah, yeah,
Guess,
yeah.
guess what? Scott Bessent, who is the Treasury Secretary right now, was George Soros's right hand man. Everybody, they're
Yes,
working together.
yes.
They're working together.
Trump has done that repeatedly. He has these connections to that, and you're right. Soros is the one and it appears to be the one that's the front man for doing this kind of financing of prosecutors and stuff. But you're right. There Trump has connections there. If he was legitimate, you wouldn't see that kind of thing. You wouldn't see
Mm.
those kind of connections. Obviously, he'd have no connection. I don't want what George Soros, the demon. I'm not going to be connected to him. But instead, he's got some. Just like when he had that was it, a month ago or so when he welcomed the some alleged terrorist into the White House or something. Remember the guy? I forget the guy's
Al
name.
Jilani in Syria,
Yes. So,
a former ISIS leader and fighter, and Al Qaeda in
yeah.
Syria guy, and so they kick out Assad, who's protecting the Christian and Alawite communities. They kick him out because he gassed his own people, and they install a Syrian head chopper who works with ISIS and Al Qaeda. And guess who ISIS and Al Qaeda, the head of ISIS and Al Qaeda in charge in Syria, is making common cause with Israel against Iran. Come on,
Well,
people.
sure. Well, and Auntie M points out that no kings don't mention a word about the war in Iran. Even as I mean,
Yep.
how can you? That should be the main focus of this. But
Yes.
it's not. It's personality driven. They hate Trump's personality. This is TDS. And thank goodness maybe TDS is serving a purpose because it's waking up the anti-war spirit in the left to some degree at least. But I think most of the people that are opposed to this are just opposed because Trump is the president.
Well, and
It-
look at Congress right now. The War Measures Act. All the Democrats are running away from it because the people who support the Democrat. I mean, APAC. Let's face it, right now, and APAC supports the Democrats as much as the Republicans. They own just Hakeem Jeffries is a big Richie
Yep,
Torres. All these people.
yep, yep, yep,
Nancy
yep.
Pelosi made a speech and she bragged about her father was a Shabbos goy for the Jews in New York City. And I mean, like you're just right
It
out
was.
there saying it. Like it's incredible.
Yeah, it's. I never thought I would see this kind of stuff discussed openly, but it's out there, and it's all the other issues revolve around this now. And I don't know, as I said, if Candace Owens does what she appears to be ready to do, and that is she starts doubting the Holocaust on TV or on her big channel, this thing is going to break wide open because it's because it's art. And I think she's going to do it because she's nibbling around the edges. She's talking about all the other people that died, the Christians and everything, and again, it has no just because however you look at it, we're not going to come and say Jews didn't suffer during World War II and weren't killed, but the idea is why is the focus so much on them to the exclusion of everybody else, and to continue to use it as a victimhood status. So if
Yeah.
you're doing something
Well,
terrible
I
in
mean,
Gaza, well, what about the Holocaust?
well, of course, and they hide behind that, and I can bring up endless examples of Jewish people themselves saying how they use that as a trick.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So, but I wanted to quickly say this one other thing about Donald J. Trump being used to implement the very thing he was supposed to be against. How about the North American technate? Because he's talking about taking Greenland and Venezuela, right? So if you look at the technate, I'm going to get my mug out of the way, but there we go. I'm just going to right there. So there's Greenland. He's talking about Canada being the 51st state, of course, and taking the northern tip of South America, which is Venezuela and Colombia and all of Mexico. So there's your North American Union. There's your technate. And Trump's obsession with taking Greenland, Canada, and Venezuela is about completing the work of, and this is really true. Elon Musk's grandfather, I forget his name, but he's actually a Canadian and also South African dual citizen. And building the American Technate, one of the pillars of the 10 kingdoms of the one world government. They're going to they want their one world government breaking into 10 spheres of influence. This is why Elon has played a prominent role in this administration. He's carrying on the work of his grandfather, also to use Doge to install Palantir surveillance systems all over government agencies. So that's what Doge is all about, people. was to get Palantir in there to do mass surveillance on the population and to bring about their new world order. And Trump is making it happen. He went under the guise of America First, but right from the start, remember his very first announcement from the White House? What was it? He called Bibi Netanyahu. What was the second thing he did? He brought in Larry Ellison and Sam Altman, and then said, we got a 500 trillion or some kind of $500 billion investment going into AI and making the United States of America have all these data centers all across and using up water resources and basically a control grid. Right from the start, he said what the second administration was going to be all about. He pissed on it right away, and every subsequent move has pissed on it more. The only guy still standing, it looks like, is Robert Kennedy Jr. to some degree, but even he had to buckle under the glyphosate thing.
He's hiding in the shadows.
Trump did the executive order making glyphosate a national murder, and he had to go on Joe Rogan and defend it. And I'm looking at it going, do you have no dignity left, Mr. RFK?
Yeah, I mean, come on, RFK. What do you think? What do you think they're going to let you do? I mean, I think in his mind he believes that he has to stay there to try to get something accomplished. I don't know what he can get accomplished. He was able to get the childhood vaccines cut dramatically from 80 something to 12 or 5 or whatever or something. It was a great reduction though. But a federal judge has already overturned that. That's judicial review. So that's and nobody seems to understand that. As long as you have judicial review and you give these federal judges this kind of power, nothing good can ever get done. Because the federal judge will just do it like they did Prop 187 back in the 90s, which would have solved the illegal immigration crisis then. No, federal judge is unconstitutional. No. You can't deny government benefits to people who are here illegally. And that was a very common sense measure, but it's easy to be black-pilled. But I still, I always have hopium. I watch a lot of Frank Capra movies, and I love John Kennedy and Huey Long, and they were both positive, idealists. And I have some idealism in me still, and I think, of course, part of me says, well, why are they letting all this talk about Zionist and Zog and everything? Why are they letting this get out there?
Because they want like the truth. The truth is in the movies, the lies are in the news. And what's all over the movies the last 20 years in our science fiction dystopia? America breaking up into a civil war. What better way to do it by putting the Zionists against the nativists and sitting back and watching it happen, bringing in martial law to start jailing people who are against the war. That's what those ICE detention facilities are for. That's what the ICE was all about. It's not about getting rid of the immigrants. And that's what building the wall is all about. It's not to keep people out; it's to keep people in.
Keep people in. Yeah. They don't seem to be. The ICE seems to be doing everything but. I don't know what they're doing.
Here's Mario Newfall. We were talking about China before. This is in China. This is their robot army that their robot army. This is incredible. Watch this. Missile launchers, machine guns. They got a friggin' machine gun there.
前进，停止，切换手套和枪在握把控制。看，我现在已经被狼群包围了。召唤机器狼的方式有几种呢？除了语音控制，还能够通过我手上的数据手套让它看懂手势。除此之外呢，如果想
Hold on a second. I'm going to try to get English subtitles here. Doesn't look like it's not going to let me do it. Damn. Okay.
在射击时实时操纵机器狼，还可以通过联动设施对它进行操作。那么在我身边的呢，就是由中国兵器自动化研究所自主研制的最新一代机器狼群。
I'd be very nervous around all this.
他们有了更强健的身躯、更智慧的大脑、更实战化的本领。那么最新一代机器狼呢，可以挂载更多的武器设施。那么我们看到这只机器狼身上背的是微型导弹，这里呢还有榴弹发射器。那么这样的火力呢，能够对目标进行火力压制。根据任务不同呢，这些机器狼有着3个响当当的名字。负责侦查的叫暗影，负责打击的叫浴血，负责保障的叫极地。那么我现在所在的这个场地呢，能够模拟 城市废墟。今天呢，将在这里，机器狼要对模拟城市巷战中的目标进行清剿。接下来呢，我们就在实战化的场景当中来看一看极地暗影浴血的硬核实力。
And remember, folks, this starts out in China. It's going to be everywhere.
相比于上一代，它还在增稳方面有了很大提升。
Are you against the war?
看，他们现在迅速通过了坑洼不平的废墟，几乎是跑起来了。它的最高时速能达到15公里，这样的爆发力让它在城市废墟、暗滩、沙滩中穿梭，如履平地。它的四肢关节有12个自由度，模仿真狼更加灵活，能够随时切换步态。 背负25公斤，还能轻松跨越30厘米的高台，这是因为它的电机功率大幅提升。这种适配复杂地形的能力，让机器狼能在山地斜坡冲锋，也能在城市废墟渗透，真正实现无死角作战。
Just like a movie.
不仅如此，它们还能协同决策。每只机器狼实时共享感知信息，形成共享视野的大脑，自动协作，共同判断，一起行动。此时抵达目标区域后，2只暗影机器狼协同构建了地图，并传到3连屏的指挥终端。3连屏指挥终端是机器狼群的指挥作战室，能够实时收集前方信息。 统一调配多只机器狼，甚至是空中的无人机，做到空地一体化，协同出击。
Another minute left, guys.
现在，我和负责保障的极地机器狼已经跟上了前方阵地负责打击的浴血机器狼的脚步。此时呢，浴血机器狼正在抵近模拟目标，准备对模拟目标发起射击。那么，他们正在调整射击的姿态。 它搭载的激光发射器一旦完成瞄准锁定，模拟目标头顶就会冒出烟雾，标识命中。通常在实战当中，机器狼是自主识别、自主瞄准，由人工来进行确认打击。根据任务不同，它们还能够更换不同的武器载荷。
浴血1号前进。
操作人员通过语音指令遥控浴血1号，背负4连装微型导弹，率先模拟瞄准目标。
发射。
抵近目标后，借助数据手套操控浴血2号，以榴弹发射器模拟对群体目标实施火力压制。深入战场时，则通过电子握把操控浴血3号，搭载191步枪，模拟完成精准打击。机器狼群由此构建起轻重搭配、梯次衔接的系列化火力体系，显著提升。
Okay, you've seen enough, guys. So there you go. That's the future. It doesn't look great. I mean, so there's China. And like you said, they're sitting there, they're laying back in the weeds. They're going to let all these other countries kill themselves, fight them. And it's the art of war by Sun Tzu. If your enemy is killing themselves, don't get in their way, right?
They're spending everything on themselves. I mean, and no matter as hideous as it is, they're spending on themselves. They're not wasting their money in other countries. And it's scary. I think we've seen lots of movies where that kind of thing backfires. I mean, I wouldn't want to be around those kinds of robots, and their guns or grenade launchers would go off accidentally or something,
or how about somebody? And we've seen over and over again how easy it is for some smart kid in his basement to hack into one of these things.
Yeah,
my goodness, my friend.
Yeah, just I mean, a horrible. Again, this is messing around with this kind of stuff is just nothing good can come out of it. But that's what they want. I don't think they want anything good to come out of it. But I will say that I would like to see with all these kind of robots. I could support. I wouldn't support it, but if they're going to have these stupid kinds of war, then have these robots fight it.
Yeah,
have your robot against,
yeah. and make it into a competition. Have every year like the Olympics or the World Championships. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody, we're going to settle our differences with the robots in the arena.
Yes.
And
Yes.
every country hosts it once a year, right? And instead of paying in human lives, we'll pay you in oil, or we'll pay you in water, whatever your
Exactly.
whatever your currency is, or your
Exactly.
natural commodity is. We'll give you half of our grain this year if you beat us with our robot dogs.
You have to do it. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
But what's really funny, and so everybody talks about how China, Donald Trump hates China. We're in this war against China. This is all about China, and people here in Canada, the China owns Canada, and Mark Carney is over there making all these trade deals. Guys, we're in a one world order system. Everybody's in on it, including your buddy Donald Trump. Donald Trump, as a matter of fact, highly respects China. This is in his own words. Here he is. I thought communism couldn't work. Well, Donald Trump says it looks like it can if they partner up, eh?
I must say I respect China greatly, because it's amazing that with a system that in theory shouldn't work, we go to school and we go to the best business schools and we do well in those schools, and we read about free entrepreneurship, and we read about all of these different things. But you look at China, how well they do, how well they manufacture. I mean, they manufacture cars so many that they actually have a contest for who can manufacture the least cars, because they have so many cars. You have to have great respect for China for the job they do. Like them or not like them, you have to respect them.
Boom. There you go, Donald Trump. And remember when he did 3 months ago, when he was talking about bringing 300,000 Chinese students to American universities, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
and he was right behind it. And the interviewer was saying, "Oh, wait a minute. That means American kids aren't going to get those spots." He says, "I don't care. They're paying for it."
Yeah.
Right? Their money is more important than the needs of our country to educate
America
our own
first.
people. We're bringing in a mercenary. We're going to educate mercenaries for our future destruction. And that's your Donald Trump. That's your America first. And people are still to this day, Don, defending him. It's unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. But I think he has really lost a lot of support. He still has too much, but I think, like, if the election was held today, I think his vote total would be, I don't know, maybe 10 points lower, 15 points lower or something. I think he's lost a huge, significant amount of support.
Yeah. Okay. So let me go here. Boom, boom, boom. So I want people to. So what's happening here? It's not going to work. Like we're talking about how this plan's not going to work. People are against the war. What could they possibly do? What could they possibly do to get the American people behind this war? And in the past, we talked about how they're not even bothering doing a false flag this time, Don, but maybe they are. Why is Tulsi Gabbard still sticking around? Why? Why are you still there? Maybe she knows something we don't know. But I know there's this evil woman, Laura Loomer. Let me just say my camera to read this. This is from Daniel Davis, and follow Daniel Davis. Go to his YouTube channel and stuff. He's been doing the best analysis of this war in Iran. On day one, he said, "We lost the war on day one." And somebody asked him, I think he was interviewing, he was on the Duran, and the Duran people said, "What do you mean we lost this war on day one?" He said, "Because they ran war games for the last 20 years on what would happen if we invaded Iran. And every time the guy who's controlling the Iran side in the war games wins. Every time. So why would they do this? Why would they do this when they know they're going to lose? Because we're meant to lose." Anyway, he's writing this. Federal authorities need to be paying close attention to this woman and her claims of just having a sense that something bigger than 9/11 is coming. And she's already readying blame on the supporting culprits, podcasters who warn against the foolishness of choosing war in the Middle East. This is all the fingerprints of a false flag prep. I know it sounds crazy. No, it doesn't, Mr. Davis. But this warning of Loomer is very specific to include scale. This either means she has dark knowledge or she is really just an unsubstantiated conspiracy theorist. The FBI should surely pay attention to this claim, especially if something similar does come to pass. This is Laura Loomer. She wrote this. Soon, there will be a massive Islamic terror attack in America, and the perpetrators will likely have financial ties to podcasters and those who are sowing discord for foreign nations in America. I predict there will be many casualties, and only then will it may be set in that people have been conned into supporting a terrorist psyop to distract you from the threat of Islam while the enemy plotted to destroy our country from within with plotted conspiracy theories. It will likely be 10 times worse than 9/11. It's going to trace right back to the woke Reich in some way. I just have this sense, she says. That is really terrifying. And now I'm going to play something else here. And when I saw this, I was kind of taken aback that they would just come right out and say this. But
did you see any surprises in Gaza?
Okay.
Surprises? Yeah.
So you mean intelligence surprises?
I want to set this up. Mads Pavling writes, maybe it's not a good idea that an Israeli company is in charge of all airport security in Europe. And I didn't know this before. But listen to this. An Israeli company is in charge of all this. Okay, here we go.
Did you see any surprises in Gaza?
Surprises?
Yeah.
You mean intelligence surprises?
Pages, walkie-talkies. Do you know how many equipment, treated equipment do we have in these countries? You don't. I do.
You mean you mean booby-trapped equipment?
Not only booby-trapped.
And spying.
Manipulated equipment. All right?
In which countries are you talking about?
All the countries that you can.
I wanted this guy who's talking, this guy right here, he's former head of Mossad. And he's just talking about this openly.
You can imagine.
And not Gaza?
Not Gaza.
Nothing
enough.
in Gaza at all.
Did you see that? If we had it, we knew something about them coming. Something, right? Would have sold them everything. Just everything. You can't imagine the quantity. When I have invented that method, that was in 2002 to 2004.
The pager method.
The manipulated equipment method. Okay? We have already used it. Manipulated equipment in Second Lebanon War. Some of the elements were speaking to us.
How did you use it?
Want a glass of water?
We can get some brandy.
They're laughing about it. Manipulated equipment. They control all the security in Europe and all the airports, and they have manipulated equipment. And you know how deep the Mossad must be into the United States here in Canada and stuff. They have carte blanche. The FBI and the CIA aren't tracking them. They're working with absolutely zero constraints on their behavior. If they wanted to, the things they could do is just unbelievable. Like they said, 9/11, sure. And of course, Larry Silverstein, remember, did you see that one where Larry Silverstein just bought a new tower in Los Angeles and has put an insurance claim against terrorism on it already?
Wow. He's got to what's he? He's like 95 years old or something. He's going to get another windfall. Jeez, it's unbelievable. It's like I said, it's again, people are noticing. Again, I don't think it could ever be ugly and to be really just a mass war against Jews or anything like that. But the more people see these obvious names like that in positions, it kindles that. It kindles that stuff, and it's because we're looking and saying, wait a minute, why is this happen so frequently? And again, we're seeing the power, and when you have somebody like Laura Loomer, who is not impressive in any way at all, and for whatever reason has a big following. When if you read her tweets, she is ratioed like 99% against her everything she posts.
Absolutely,
and that so it's like, so how does she have a following? I don't understand. The same thing with Bongino now, and even Kash Patel himself. But if you read these things, Mark Levin, Ben Shapiro, whenever they tweet anything, they get destroyed in the comments.
And the only people supporting them, when you look into the people that are supporting them, all Hasbro bot farms, all of them.
Yeah.
Anyway,
That's.
I wanted to quickly share this too. So, what do they know that we don't know? Breaking. Palantir CEO Alex Karp, and I couldn't believe this, but it's true, has bought a $46 million billionaire bunker in Miami, which has its own private police and neighbors that include Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, and guess who? Jared Kushner. They have their own bunker ready to go. So I guess they don't give a fuck about the rest of us, right?
No, it's all non-Irish too. No non-Irish need apply. I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it goes to we've heard the stories for years about all the underground facilities under Denver Airport. There's supposedly a really extensive one there. It's something very strange. And out here near me, there's Mount Weather. Out in California, there's Mount Shasta, and these are supposedly elaborate underground facilities.
Oh yeah.
And so, what are they there for? Are they planning something like this? So that kind of plays into these scenarios where they're going to destroy things and they're prepared because they can go underground and live fine like that for however long. And the people up top, unfortunately, are out of luck. So I certainly hope nothing like that happens. But it's just so
But you can see it because these people are when people become billionaires or say multimillionaires and billionaires and they have all this power and they start getting high on their own supply and they actually believe that they're smarter than the rest of us and that maybe it's a good thing, this depopulation agenda. Those Georgia Guidestones were constructed for a reason, right? And in their own writings, when you read about them, like the Committee of 300 and the horrible things they talk about depopulation and that robot and Elon Musk and all these people coming out, how robots are going to replace them. And at the World Economic Forum, where Yuval Harari says that humans are hackable animals and we have to merge with technology. So there's going to be 80% of the population that's going to be useless eaters and we have to do something with them. Well, that's what the famine, that's what the war is for, that's what the pestilence is for. These people are insane enough to believe that we can hide in our bunkers. We'll come out 200 years later with a super race. These people are insane enough to believe it. But of course, as we know, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry. Hubris kills, pride goeth before a fall. And they're all going to get their just desserts, right? Because, as Thomas Jefferson said, I tremble for my country when I realize that God is just. So, yeah, they're going to get theirs. I'm going to let you go pretty soon, Don. Thanks for staying with me for so long. Thanks to the audience. This is my biggest stream I've had in a long time. 71 people watching, 42 on Rumble, 6 on YouTube. Thank you guys for tuning in. And like I said, go to my YouTube channel. Just go RB Ham Beyond the Pale YouTube channel. Please subscribe, let's try to grow the channel over there. And I'm going to try to start getting bigger and better. And we're going to end off with a little bit of humor because one good thing about this is that gallows humor that comes out of this. And there's been a lot of funny stuff about this. And when I saw this, I was laughing my ass off. This was a minute and 30 of pure comic gold from the puppeteers.
Good afternoon. After very strongly renaming the Gulf of Mexico as Gulf of America, we will be making further changes effective immediately. Europe will now be known as America Plaza East. The Panama Canal will be known as Trump America Canal of Trump. And of course, Turkey will now be known as Chicken.
Why are you renaming Turkey in particular?
Why are we doing it? Because we can. What are they going to do about it? Does Turkey want a beef over being called chicken? We'll call it beef. Also, we're going to name Hungary Thirsty. Don't worry, the Prime Minister there will do whatever I tell him.
What is behind this policy of changing everyone's name?
Because America will no longer allow people to tell us what to call them. It's like the pronouns. It's over. So what's that? Zelensky's on line 3? Put him on speaker. What else do you want? We're cutting off the aid immediately. Mr. Trump, we demand that you call our country Trump Crane. Trump Crane? Boy, I always thought of it more of a me crane than a Ukraine, but Greater Trump Crane. Greatest Trump Crane. Deal! And we will also rename Donbass Donald Bass and retake Russia. Deal! I love it. Sally, tell Pete Hegseth to give these Trump Cranians whatever they want.
That's puppet regime. Was that good or what?
That was good. Yeah, that's great.
It was hilarious. All right. Well, hey, Don, where can people find you? I'm going to run your scroll here.
Substack is the only place on that being shadow banned. Donald Jeffries at substack.com. I Protest, which is just the same title as my weekly podcast. I Protest. It airs every Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern on my YouTube channel and sometimes on Rumble. sometimes on my Twitter if it gets there. I'm shadow banned pretty much everywhere except Substack, so I just start broadcasting on there. But you can follow me at Twitter to whatever degree I'm not being shadow banned there at Don Jeffries.
Well, thank you so much for appearing, Don, once again, and I'm glad you got to meet Sabby, and I'll send you her contact info so you guys can connect.
Be great.
I would love to see you guys do a little bit more because the old timers like us old time conspiracy theorists, the guys that saw this coming for years, we're starting to see a connection not between our peers who the NPCs, the normies who wrote us off and just will never admit that they were wrong, right? Because I always say this: I'll forgive them for being wrong, but they'll never forgive me for being right. They'll just double down and harden into their positions. But the young people coming up are way more awake than the people that were surrounded us when I was a kid. The JFK thing and all that, we were a minority of people that asked these questions and do critical thinking, because at that time the mainstream media was so overwhelmed with conventional wisdom, right? The Newsweek, everybody read their Newsweek, everybody read their New York Times, everything was, we got to go with the authoritative sources. Operation Mockingbird, when it first came out with the Church Commission, it was something, but it only really registered with like 5 to 10% of the population. The rest of them just didn't pay attention, and they kept believing in the lies. I think it's all being exposed now, and the young people coming up, the Zoomers, the ones that realize, hey, these motherfuckers, we can't buy our own homes. Everything's too expensive to live. We've got to do 2-3 jobs. Our future looks bleak. And when that happens, people start looking around for other information. When they're being censored and they know it, like Alexander Solzhenitsyn said, when you can start reading between the lines of the propaganda and you know you're being propagandized, that's when freedom truly exists, when you can use critical thinking for that. And so this young generation growing up is important, and we need to connect with them, and we got to give them our wisdom, like I said, because they're going to be full of vengeance. You know how they are. Look what the Iranian propaganda is. We're going to hit back hard and stuff like this.
Absolutely.
There's a reason the Bible is divided between the Old Testament and the New Testament. Jesus came along and said, do unto others as you would have them do unto me. And do not seek vengeance, for that is the Lord's purvey. Seek justice and reconciliation. And that's the only way forward. Forgiveness is the best way. And I think that that's our only hope. So thank you guys for showing up this week. Thanks, Don. I'll let you go now. Until next week. By the way, guys, next week, Anthony Aguilar is going to be on my show. Look him up. He's a fantastic guy. He was serving. He's a longtime veteran, an American veteran, who was serving in Gaza when they were doing that global food distribution hub. And he saw firsthand what was happening to the Gazans. He blew the whistle on it, and he's going to be running for office in North Carolina. And so I'm going to be bringing him on next week. It's going to be a great show. I think I might bring Matthew Ehret on with him if Matthew can make it, and make it a show about how justice can actually be served, and whether you can vote your way out of it. Because like I ran for the People's Party of Canada. I didn't do too well, but at least I did it. And I'm still kind of believing the idea that the people can vote, people can have a voice. And even if you don't win the election, at least you can win the debate, sort of thing. So that's going to be interesting. So thanks, Don. And I'll see you soon. Love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. I'm going to be running. I'll do another version of my theme song as we leave. I just wanted to tell you, next week, please show up again. Anthony Aguilar is going to be joining, and Cynthia McKinney is also going to be showing up in one of my Saturdays this coming up in April. I don't know if it's going to be the week after Anthony, but it could be the week after that. But she will be here, and she is fascinating. I love Cynthia McKinney. She's one of the true heroes I had after 9/11, because she stood up to the military-industrial complex and got a lot of slings and arrows for it and was roasted over the coals, but she's got some cojones, let me tell you. And so I think it'd be good for everybody to join in and check out Cynthia McKinney. Next week, Anthony Aguilar. Thanks, guys. So I'll be leaving right away. And please, I'm going to run this scroll because I always forget to do it, people. Especially my wife says, remember to support RB Ham. Donate to my givesendgo.com/RB Ham. It's income tax time. And because I marched against the COVID mandate, I marched against the Iraq war too, but I didn't get ticketed for that. But I marched against the COVID mandates and got a whole bunch of tickets for fighting against the COVID mandates and restrictions, and the government cracked down on me for violating public health orders and for standing up for my freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. And the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms did their best for me. They fought for me in court, but because here in Saskatchewan, the judges are all politically appointed, they would not accept any countervailing evidence except for what the public health said. And so if the public health said there was a pandemic and people are going to die unless you did what they told them, they just threw any countervailing evidence out of court, including the Great Barrington Declaration people like Jay Bhattacharya. His evidence, his spoken evidence wasn't considered because he wasn't a part of the Canadian public health establishment. So I got hammered. I got 8 tickets for $50,000. You can help me out, please. Just $5 a month just to keep my Give Send Go going. That would be great. And I work as a truck driver from Sunday to Thursday and Sunday to Friday, actually. And it's hard on me as an old dude, 60 years old. I got fired from my position as a custodian in the public health system, in the public school system. Because I noticed the horrible things that were going on, and I spoke up against it. And even though a lot of people supported me, they were afraid to do it publicly and lose their jobs. But I know I was on the right side of history because, as Martin Luther King Jr. said, it is your duty to observe and follow just laws, but it is also your duty as a citizen to disobey unjust laws. And the COVID mandates and restrictions and lockdown policy hurt people far more than they help them. It was obvious right from the start. There was expert opinion that said that right from the start, and that's what I was following. So so if you could help me, that'd be great. Thank you so much for everything you're doing, and remember to go to my YouTube channel, RB Ham, Beyond the Pale on YouTube. Help me grow there. And I'm going to check. Have I been kicked off? Did I say anything bad yet? No, I managed to stream over there the whole time. I got 13 likes over there. So thanks, guys, for keeping my YouTube dreams alive. We'll see how long it lasts, but love you guys. And so next week, come back for Anthony Aguilar. I will have more great content. I promise you that we're going to really delve into the bigger picture, and we're going to try to white pill you a little bit next week. There is hope when enough people wake up and stop supporting the system and do constructive measures to fight back against it. There is hope. I know there is, because I think somebody very famous said, it seems like nothing will change until all of a sudden it does, right? And when Martin Luther King Jr. was marching for civil rights in Georgia and South Carolina and all that stuff, it seemed hopeless to a lot of people, but you keep at it and you keep chipping away, and eventually justice can possibly prevail. Because if you look at human history, in the long arc of human history, it always tends towards justice. There's going to be massive swings here and there, and what we're going through is a massive swing. There's going to be a lot of pain, and a lot of bad things are going to happen before it gets better. But we got to fight for it. We got to keep going through the maelstrom. I started fighting in the first ditch. We may be in the last ditch now, but I'm going to keep fighting like I did in the first ditch, even in the last ditch. I'm never going to give up until they take my freedom away from my cold dead hand, as it was, because that's what it's all about, is freedom. And if you don't have freedom and you're just a slave, what's the point of living? Like a lot of people say, I'd rather die on my feet than die on my knees. So thanks, guys, for showing up. And remember, conventional wisdom is simply conventional deception. If you really want to know the truth, sometimes you just have to go beyond the pale. Thanks, guys. See you next week.
They send our sons to war, a cruel charade, a racket built on blood, where fortunes are made. They lie about the reasons, spin tales so tall, while heroes die for profit and empires fall. Politics a game, a circus of clowns, puppets on strings. They parade through our towns. They distract and divide us with hate as their tool, pitting brother against brother in a world they misrule. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Their anti-human agenda, it's plain as the day. They view us as bugs in their cold, heartless play. Eat insects, they sneer, while they feast on the land. Depopulation's their goal, with a tightening hand. Civil rights torn to shreds in the name of their peace. A police state rises where freedom's all seized. Gaslight us with propaganda, their lies never end, twisting truth in their grip till our minds start to bend. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the pale, then that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. Order out of chaos, their sinister creed. They spark the flames, then offer what we need. Economic stagnation, they choke out our dreams, while divide and conquer rips us at the seams. They fan every fracture, they stoke every fight, left against right, till we're blind to the light. Yet beyond their pale lies the truth they conceal. A world where we're free, where our hearts can still heal. When the powers that be warn you not to go beyond the veil, then bold, and that's a sure sign there's more to the tale. So step past their warnings, their fences, their lies. See the world they've been hiding with wide open eyes. Beyond the pale, where their power grows frail, we'll reclaim our future and truth will